call this meeting of the Somerset Berkley Regional School Committee to order at 7:14 p.m. Due notice having been posted. The purpose of this meeting is to meet jointly with the Somerset School Committee. Let the record show that this meeting is being electronically recorded. And if anyone in the audience also wishes to electronically record this meeting, you should notify the committee at this time. Any such recording may be subject to reasonable restrictions imposed by the chair to the extent permitted under the open meeting law. Roll call. Mr. Larrabee? Here. Mr. Villaducci? Here. Mrs. Gagliardi? Here. Mrs. Field? Here. Mr. Vitello? Here. Mrs. Rothwell? Here. And the chair is present. Also with us tonight, our Superintendent of Schools, Jeffrey Schoonover, our Director of Curriculum, Elizabeth Haskell, our Director of Special Education, Lisa Martesian, and joining us remotely, our Director of Business and Finance, Lindsay Alvarez.
I'd like to call the Somerset K-8 meeting to order at 7:15, notice being posted. Let the record show this meeting is being electronically recorded. If anyone in the audience also wishes to electronically record this meeting, you should notify the committee at this time. We have SATB here tonight. Any such recording may be subject to reasonable restrictions imposed by the chair to the extent permitted under the open meeting law. Roll call members present. Mr. Vitello? Here. Mrs. Rothwell? Here. Mr. Schock?
Here.
Mr. Crook?
Here.
The chair is here as well. With us, we have Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Jeffrey Schoonover, Director of Business and Finance, Mrs. Lindsay Alvarez, which will be participating remotely, Director of Curriculum, Ms. Elizabeth Haskell, Director of Special Education, Mrs. Mrs. Lisa Martesian, and Recording Secretary Rocky Picaro. Our first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business on our agenda is to discuss the transportation contract. Mrs. Albanaz is with us remotely. She hasn't been feeling well for the last several days, and we really appreciate her joining us tonight. We're continuing a discussion that we had at our last joint meeting. At that time, we talked about obtaining additional information about transportation contracts of surrounding school districts, the possibility of the chairs along with Mrs. Albanaz meeting with our sole bidder on our transportation contract and coming back to the meeting tonight with additional information for the committees. So, Mrs. Albanaz, would you like to start off with the documentation that we have here?
I'm trying to get her established here. Yes. Yeah, we are going to be using that monitor.
Maybe just to move the cameras up so we can look at the screen.
Lindsay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
We see you.
I can see you too.
Really? Wow, that's great.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Ready to go? Can you see my? Yeah. Okay. So, what you had sent to you last night was a result of a session that Rick Pierce, Melissa Terra, and I had with the Fishers last Thursday morning. And I'll go to the summary. And I think you guys have, I'm hoping Robin printed this for you guys for tonight.
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. So there was some negotiations in regards to the bus contract. Fisher agreed to a few things that we can consider for the new bus contract. The first one is the athletic trips. You have a 6-page spreadsheet that lists out all the sports that were done in FY18. And I did 18 because we don't know what this season's spring sports will be. So I used last year's actual trip to do this cost out. They essentially said changing the waiting time, which I know is a big issue, from $60 an hour to $45 an hour. They will keep the $4.25 per mile, but they would also add a minimum charge for any athletic trip to be $225. So that is kind of one of the things that we talked about with in regards to athletic trips. So to cost that out, we have this sheet. I costed out what the actual cost would be for this year, which is in column F, $85,202. Using the concessions that they gave us on Thursday morning, column K is what the new trip would cost. However, with minimum trips, we did have some athletic trips that did not reach $225 per trip. The actual cost would be about $91,966, which is in column L. So the FY20 cost over FY19 cost would be about a $6,700 increase. What I did in column R and S is what that contract would be with the existing bid responses as they were stated in the bid response. Essentially $4.25 per mile, $60 per hour waiting time. The difference between what that would cost in FY20 versus what we're paying in FY19 is about $19,560. So that's the first item that we discussed. The second concession is listed on this printout. They agreed to reduce the daily bus cost with the security cameras from $345.50 to $341, and no additional charge for the security cameras. The savings are indicated here. K-8 seeing $10,860, the high school seeing $6,245. Another concession is they requested if we could remove the clauses for transportation routing software utilization, as well as submitting daily bus counts for each bus ride. They would reduce the daily bus rate from $341 to $338 per day. Savings of $7,248 and $4,163 for the high school. The last item that we should discuss that doesn't really have a cost information is that they've just requested that for any extracurricular trips in regards to like field trips, that we obtain a quote from them when we are calling vendors and trying to get a bus lined up for a field trip. And that's listed in this memo. So those are the changes that we've talked about. Rick or Melissa, if I missed anything, please feel free to jump in. But these are the financial changes that we talked about.
Yes, there's a couple of questions. Did you mentioned there was a cap. They put the cap to 6 hours of the waiting time.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. So for athletic trips, they did, cap waiting time, charges to 6 hours. We did have, I'd say a dozen trips last year that did pay over, 7 hours for waiting time, some up to 12 hours. Most of them were around 7 or 8 though.
We have some questions. Ms. Machado had a question.
On your first section, the second concession, the bus cost was $345.50, and you have it reduced to $341. That would be a reduction of $4.50 a day, but it says originally $350. So is the cost going to be $342 or $341?
$341, sorry, it's supposed to be $4.50.
Okay. And my last question was, last time when the Fishers were here, they had given us like a balloon price that the counts, the arms, and maybe something else, it was going to be $9 more a run. I see that the bus counts is about $3. Is it safe to say that the arms, to install the arms, was that $6?
No, they were going to come down $5 a day for the routing, for the bus count and the crossing arms.
It was $5?
Yeah, I'm not sure where the $9 is coming
I may have wrote something wrong on my paper. Okay, thank you.
This still includes the arms though then, this proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
And Lindsay, was there any discussion about the arms and why that wasn't a one-time capital expense versus a daily rate for the buses?
We did not get that far, no.
The other thing, and I'm not sure if the committee has another chart that Lindsay prepared subsequent to our last joint meeting which shows more information than we had at our last meeting about rates in surrounding school districts. One of the concerns that I had at that time was that we really didn't have a lot of financial information. Some of the contracts had been sent to us without the financial information actually being included. And so I'm much more comfortable with the price based upon this additional information. For example, Dartmouth, which contracts with Amaral Bus Service, their 2019 rate is $349.28 per bus. The Dayton-Rehoboth contract for the current year, their bus price is $369. I saw an article was published that the Freetown Lakeville School District decided to make a change and contracted with First Student, which is a large student transportation company that serves many districts. And for some reason, I don't know if it's because it's a rather rural school district and a lot of square miles, they're paying $530 per bus. And the CCON contract, they're paying $396 per bus. So that's information that I didn't have at the last meeting, which makes me feel much more comfortable with the bid that we received.
And some of the numbers that you articulated, Mr. Pierce, also you can see from their contract dates, those are probably on the lower end if they're going into renegotiation at some point. And as Fisher pointed out, that there was some economical forces that were playing on what they had for higher rates, such as increase in minimum wage. I would be curious to see if those would only go up and not down.
Well, there are two school districts that we really don't have any information or useful information on. For example, in Fall River, the rate is relatively low, but they're actually in the bid process right now, and will, I think the deadline for their bids is the end of this week. And there's another school district that we had mentioned as well, that is also, I believe it's Swansea, that's out for bid this year. So we really don't have comparable information for Swansea either.
Or Dartmouth.
Because if you look at their current rate, it's $289, but I believe that they're out for bid right now also. Is that, do I recall that correctly, Lindsay? Do you know?
No, Swansea's not out to bid, just Dartmouth and Fall River.
Dartmouth and Fall River, okay.
The amounts in that column are for FY20, the contract that we did get.
So, just from my personal perspective, I think we had a positive conversation with Fisher. They came in recognizing our concerns, and we're prepared to make some changes. I'm inclined to accept, I personally, I'm just speaking for myself personally, I'm willing to approve the offer with the concessions that Fisher made. And the only issue I think that we have to address is how important the software daily counts are, and whether we want to accept those proposals and reduce the daily cost of $338 from $341. We tried to talk with Fisher a little bit about that because we seemed to, they felt that requiring the drivers to record the daily counts would be a safety issue. I myself was skeptical about that because I thought the driver would be counting the students as they got on the bus or as they got off the bus when the bus was stopped. But they said that any distraction from tending to the kids could become a safety issue. So that's their position on that, and I think they also feel that they have a significant administrative cost in acquiring and then maintaining and operating the software for the bus routes. We have that software, so if we determined that we wanted to commit personnel to that, we could probably do that in-house. So it would probably, for us, be the same kind of concern that Fisher has as to whether the cost justifies the information that we get from utilizing the software and testing the routes. Although, in talking with Lindsay, she indicated to me that the software is not as comprehensive as I had thought it would be. In other words, I thought that we were buying software where you just fed in the addresses of every student, and the software, sort of like a GPS system, would design the route and come up with the most efficient, cost-effective route. Apparently, the software we have doesn't have that capacity. So, it's whether software like that exists and how much more expensive it would be, I don't know. But,
So what exactly does the software do?
Lindsay, could you answer that question? Stephanie asked, what exactly does the software do?
So the software allows you to create the routes that you want to utilize. It then calculates the time it can take to do that run, as well as assigning stops to bus students to bus stops, and also, you know, if we do door to door for the elementary students. It's not to the point where you can just click a button like Rick said and it just routes it for you. It's not meant to do that. It's meant so that you can see on a map what the route looks like. You can also export that to reports. So you can actually publish those on, the district's websites as far as what the bus routes look like, what streets it's going down, and the stops that it's making, and the time that, it leaves. Let's say it's an elementary run, the time that it leaves the middle school, and then it's going down to a north run. Like, so let's say your child gets picked up in the middle of the run, it can kind of dictate what time the bus should probably be there. So that's what the routing software can do.
So even if we have that information, and we already have an existing contract with Fisher, there's no guarantee that just because we have that data, that Fisher would be required to change their routes. Do I have that correct?
The only thing that you could probably see is how efficient the route is being done. Is there kind of dead time assigned to some of these bus routes?
Right, but I guess from a expense perspective, for us to spend the extra money for that data, right now, it's really not gonna have a payoff for us. But where I would find value, and I think it's a separate data point, is to see how many kids we have on each bus. I think that the data, it's just good for the school committee to have an understanding, whether there's really anything to do with that, is how many students in the population we're serving on these buses.
I agree, except that we really don't need a daily count for that purpose. I mean, counting the students once a month or once every 2 months, because there are some seasonal variations. I mean, I suppose students may ride the bus more often in the winter, more students ride in the fall because gradually they get driver's licenses. So, from the regional perspective, I think we could find a way to do a count on a whatever periodic basis we thought would be useful for us to get that data, to know what our ridership is and whether we need as many buses as we have, that kind of information. And we may be looking more from a regional perspective. As I mentioned at the budget committee meeting, regional transportation aid seems to be targeted by certain political factions. The governor's proposed budget reduced regional transportation aid significantly. The gateway cities don't receive any regional transportation aid generally, so except for perhaps for their vocational schools. But there's also a strong group of regional school districts, particularly in the middle, and western part of the state, that lobby hard to maintain transportation aid, even though it hasn't really been fully funded from the outset. So if the naysayers on regional transportation aid were to prevail, we might be looking hard at how many buses we're running. But that's information that we could accumulate without necessarily having daily counts, or a count in the morning and a count in the evening every day.
Yes, and I believe the counts are important to us for K-8. However, I did hear the point about adding another responsibility to the bus drivers. And it's something that I talked to Mr. Schoonover about, and he can have staff do the counts, especially, for the K-8. I'm sure he can do it for the high school as well. So if that was a factor in the prices, and for him, he could have just kept the price in there and say they're gonna do it. So for him, it was a safety concern. So if that's gonna save us a little money, we can have our home staff do it. And I don't wanna say, yes, they have to do it, and then they are distracted. Because again, we have veteran bus drivers, we might have new ones, and I really can agree, we don't need to have their eyes off the road. I think we negotiated in good faith, and we did bring down the cost a little bit. And I think that's helpful. And I'm not, after the rest of the committee, then I would also ask Mrs. Albanaz of what she recommends we go from here.
I just have a quick question about the count. I don't understand how that distracts the bus driver, because I'm like what Mr. Pierce said. I expect when the bus gets to the school, the bus driver can easily count how many kids are getting off the bus at that point. Same thing when they leave the school, how many kids are getting on the bus. If anything, I would want to know how many kids got on the bus so I know how many kids are getting off the bus instead of, it's just another, so I don't understand why that would be a distraction to the bus driver.
I can't see why a staff can't do that. Why would we ask
Because
the bus driver
I
to
really,
do that?
to me, when we're looking at a very, $54,000 a bus or $50,000 a bus, I think we really need, we just had data presented to our transportation committee yesterday where it basically said that kids are being dropped off at all in one location. Well, we have heard from the administration that that's not the actual fact. So to me, I really want a daily count where I know, in my opinion, I know how many kids are actually utilizing the service that we provide. So we can make more decisions like, should we allow parents to opt out? Let's put it out there where parents can opt out, those that are not, because now, currently, we all know not 100% is taking the bus, but no one here can tell me what is the percentage that does not use the bus. So can you imagine if we find out next year that 15% of the kids are really opting out, not using the bus? To me, that would be, hey, that's a bus. Same thing with the high school. I understand you're getting the regional aid, and I know it helps the K-8, but, if you currently are using, how many buses at the high school, if you're using, let's say, 10, and you really only need 8, why would you want to pay the extra 2 if the state is reimbursing or not? That funding, that extra funding that you're paying for those 2 extra buses, that's programs for the kids at the high school. So to me, I'm just looking at it as,
I absolutely agree with you, but I can't see, we're the ones asking for information as a district, so I think it should be under our purview as our staff could collect that data. We don't need to pay extra for a bus driver to do it when Mr. Schoonover has, and you can ask staff to do it as staff are actually walking the students off the bus and they're actually putting them on the bus. It's the same concept. Why would we pay extra for that when we already have that process in there and we're the ones that need the data, not the bus company? So we would have that data right there.
okay, well,
I agree. We need to have it
I
done.
need that, one of the things that I would definitely, if you can guarantee that our staff is gonna be giving you counts, because, and I don't mean this week is this count, I need to see what the trends are, so next year we can actually make some real tough, we may have to make tougher decisions. If this year's budget was difficult, I can only imagine what next year's is going to look like. And the following year, I'm also looking at a middle school project where we're gonna be asking the town to approve X amount of millions of dollars to either repair or rebuild or whatever we need to do. I just think we need to really look at everything. So that's, if you can guarantee us that we will get those counts at the K-8 level, I'm fine with reducing it. But if we can't guarantee it, I don't know how I feel about that.
Daily counts, I will not guarantee that, not daily. No, I already have staff who go out several times per year. I ask principals to get counts from kids getting on and off the bus. And then usually do it for several different days, just so we can get some averages at different times of the year. But if it's something that happens daily, several times per week, I have the same concerns. Our paras, usually it's our paraprofessionals who are doing this. They're out there making sure the kids are getting on the bus safely. And I don't want them now being distracted by every single day having to check off who's getting on, who's getting off, because something's gonna happen there. Several times per year, for a couple of days at a time, it's fine. But if it's more frequent than that, I cannot guarantee that.
Was there any discussion of what these daily counts would look like? Like, how are they gonna submit them to us? Like, so they have all this data, how are we gonna get it? Like, do they have a program in place to say,
I'm sure it would just be
on
a
Monday,
spreadsheet
Tuesday,
that we would get
Wednesday,
every so often.
with numbers?
Yeah. Bus 18 has this many kids.
On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
And I think it'd be better, under the staff when you deem it's necessary. I just think, again, we have no control over the bus driver staff, but we have more of a kind of say and accountability for our staff. Do I think it needs to be done every day of the year? Probably Probably not, but again, like Mr. Pierce said, there's probably certain times that we could do it to try to get the data that we need.
And at the high school level, I usually ask for counts, particularly this time of the year or in November when athletics are now over, just to see we have fewer kids who are participating in after-school activities. So it's a good time to actually figure out what's the largest number of kids who are going to be using school buses. There are certain times where I ask for that information.
See, I'm just taking as a third concession is not a concession, in my opinion. It's just not a concession. All it is, it's a concession of what we asked for. That's basically, it was placed on that agenda, on what you call it, am I wrong? Or am it's not a concession. Basically, we really don't want to do it, but if you make us to do it, we're going to charge you $3. It's not a concession. We're removing something that we thought it made value, and that's why we put it in there. And now, because we found out the price, it's a concession. So
Well,
it's
well,
not.
I
It's
would-
we're concessioning. We're doing the
Well,
concession.
that's what I mean, I looked at it as our concession to say, you know, in order to jointly look at the overall cost of this contract, they're looking to make a reduction, which is noted on the second concession in the first concession. In return, we're looking to make a concession, which is the third one. We're saying, well, maybe we don't need these things. We kept on, and that's why I asked about the arms. We thought that was important, but in reality, and the other pieces, I think the committee looked at, you know, maybe this is something we could do without in order to continue to bring the cost down. That's how I read it, that it wasn't, I wasn't necessarily disagreeing that it was a concession overall, but it is on our part. for the
These are new items that we added to
Right.
the request for proposal. We did not have a requirement in the past contract to either require Fisher to acquire and do routes with the software product, and we did not require them to do daily counts. So they're simply coming back and saying, you know, there are such a range of factors that they have to incorporate into the daily price. Obviously, overhead, cost of buses, cost of insurance, cost of personnel, fringe benefits, and they included a factor for the additional staffing that they would require to administer. I mean, someone's got to collect the data on the daily counts, and someone's got to maintain the software. So they're saying if they're excused from that requirement in the request for proposals, they can drop it another $3 a day. Is that what it was, $3? So, I mean,
And the other question that I had asked is the ARMS. Is there any statistics out there that spending $2 more each run or each day, that it benefits? Because if it is a big statistics out there that it makes sense, why aren't all school districts doing it? And that's my other piece.
Costs
Like,
money.
but I'm just wondering, is that worth, you know, is the safety, is there such a statistic where spending, let's just say, 5,000 and ballpark, this is not saying spending $10,000 more on the ARMS per year, is there a huge statistic out there saying that it's a great savings? Because we don't have bus stops. I can see if we had bus stops and you want to have that on, but you're still dropping the kids off door to door.
not at the high school. Oh, no.
Not at the high school,
Yeah,
not at the
but
middle school.
We're not, my granddaughter crosses the street to get on the bus in the morning.
On a slow street, absolutely.
Well, it depends.
But
how
she's
you
still-
consider
she's
a
still
small
crossing in
street.
front of
The statistics are, there are cars right in this town that are passing the buses. So to me, you know, we might not say, gee, how has it benefited, but I could say, I haven't seen any data saying there's many cars that are passing buses with the arms out. But I see it all the time, even in town, how many cars are going around. So to me, I think that speaks for
Well,
itself.
The extension arms extend out in front of the bus, and the purpose of that is to ensure that
With the driver.
our students can be seen by the driver,
That's,
because our smaller students will walk directly in front of the vehicle and they can't see them. This just ensures that they are walking 10 or so feet or 5 feet, whatever it is, in front of the bus, so that the driver maintains visual contact on the kids. I mean, that's really what the purpose purpose of these
Yeah,
extension
it's
arms
not like
are.
it's going around and closing the whole school, and that's the piece where I'm saying, that purpose of the arm is so that the driver has visibility of the student. It's not going to stop the situation where your granddaughter and my daughter still has to cross the street. I'm just saying, that's just, that piece is so the driver, so to me, it seems like obviously, and I'm not saying that we'll never have this issue, but if you have a bus driver who's really paying attention, you have, it's not like we have little kids being dropped off at a bus stop where they need to make sure that a bus driver should be able to say, okay, 2 kids are being dropped off in that section, 2 kids are in front of this bus, I have to make sure that I have visibility before I move. It's not like we're dropping off at a bus stop where there's 8, 9, 10 kids coming off at one time.
But let's just clarify here. The cost of the arm is included in either the 341 or the 338, correct? So you're suggesting that we should go back to them and see if there'd be a further reduction if we eliminated the arms on the buses? Is that what we're getting to here?
It looks like we're removing $3. It would be, if the price was $2 more, because they had said it's about $5, it would reduce it by another $2. I'm just looking at it as, if we're not doing bus stops, so that was one of the reasons why I was looking at the arms. I wanted to see the cost of it, because if we were doing bus stops for the elementary level, but that doesn't seem like it's something that's gonna happen in the next contract. This may be something we should revisit afterwards.
If you do bus stops in the middle school, with
But
6th
they're older
graders.
kids. They're older kids. We're talking, the purpose of the arms is really for the smaller grade kids, so people can do. Listen, I'm just looking at it as, if the $3 is an expense, then the $2 is also an expense. I'm just looking at it, to me, I would rather see the concession on that versus this, but I'm not gonna hold this contract up. I would say let's vote on the contract as it is, because we are getting to the last minute, but go back to Fish and say, hey, if we remove the arms, how lower will it go? And if so, you just amend them up, you come back and you say, this is the new contract. It doesn't have to be a joint meeting, it can be something that we do individually.
Do we really wanna take a safety feature off of bus
Yeah, didn't we
stops?
have a lengthy conversation
Yes.
about how safety features? were
I just
something
think we're talking, you know, that's not a safety feature. I don't think the time or the amount of time on the bus or the kids. But I just don't know for $2 if we should take a safety feature off.
In addition, yeah, the arms don't just serve a purpose of, for me as a driver, you know, the lights are one safety feature so that you know something's happening, but a lot of times your eyes move towards movement, so when those bars come out, it does, you know, it does signify that there's a bus there.
And there are
that's
lights on
happening.
them and they flash.
Yeah,
We
exactly,
should
that's
be
an
proud that
additional.
we're doing
I
that.
always thought it looked kind of
Should be
intimidating
proud
with
of
that. I said, wow, this looks, you know, looks cool because it like shuts the whole street down. Kids can't walk by it. I always looked at it and said, wow, I'd like to have that
Right.
on the
Well,
Serta
we should
buses,
be
you know,
happy.
like I'd like to have it everywhere.
I'm just looking at it, you know, if the light, hey, now if the arms had lights, that would get my attention. A line, you know, lights catch my attention, not the moving part. But listen, I'm not gonna hold up the truck. Like I said, I'll support this, but I'm just giving you my opinion. That's.
Can I make a motion?
Can I just ask one more question, and Lindsay, I know there's a consideration that the Fisher Bus asked that we, obtain a quote for every field trip. And I know that that's just a quote, that doesn't mean that, you know, we have to decide to go with that quote. Do you see anything else that we need to talk about with that request, or do you think that that's fairly straightforward? Or maybe it would be
As
helpful
far
if
as
you
the
could.
field trip quote?
Yeah, you know what would be helpful, Lindsay, how does it work now? How do we find transportation for field trips?
So right now, Fisher Bus does all of our field trips. Because it's in the existing contract.
So this would give us the opportunity to,
What we were hoping to do was allow coordinators and other teachers who coordinate the field trips to be able to shop around.
And this will still allow them to do that?
And what Fisher asked is that they just be considered, and asked to be, you know, to be able to supply a quote to the teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they were concerned that they have the reputation of being expensive, and that if the PTOs or content coordinators had the option of going out to 2 or 3 vendors, that they would exclude them from the opportunity to bid. So all they want is for us to require that any school-sponsored activity obtain a quote from our contractor as well as any other contractors that they want, and they're free to go with a low bid, but they want to be able to compete for those field trips.
And does that now become a formal bid process where it extends the time? I just wanna make sure that we're not tying the hands of our coordinators in any way by having a requirement that they need to go to bid with, or obtain a bid from Fisher.
I mean, it would seem like Fisher is the one that can give them the quickest quote, but if there are others that they, obviously there are others in the area that are well-known, so it may require them to do it a week in advance, but, you know, they probably shouldn't be going out the day before anyway.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with that. I think it's really just making a second phone call.
Okay.
Asking for the quotes. The turnaround time is quick. It's not like a bidding process
Okay.
that Lindsay goes through for some of these larger items.
They just want to be considered because they felt that, you know, by the rates, they want to be able to be the lowest bidder. I mean, I wanted to put in there that they would be, but it would have been too, someone else could have said they were gonna do a lot cheaper, then they would have to match it. But they want to get the business and really work with the coordinators. You had questions? Mr.
Yeah, I have one more question, a couple more questions. For vans, for instance, do we have any authority, like, first of all, like routes and stuff like that? I understand they usually come out with the routes and all of that, but let's just say in our vans, do we pay for each individual van per day, or do we pay the van per trip?
For special education vans?
Special education vans.
You mean, do we pay Fisher?
Yes.
We pay them, for the trips that they do. Like primarily for the out of district, if a student doesn't go to school, we don't pay them for the day. However, if the driver has already left to pick that student up in the morning, then we do get charged a partial charge.
Okay. No, what I was just wondering, because I know that we've saved a lot of money because we do a lot of double, maybe even triple runs with our vans, and I was just wondering if we were paying for the vans for the day, or like why are we not taking the opportunity to have the vans do multiple drop-offs instead of just picking up one child, bringing it to school, and going back to back to the station? So I was just wondering how we actually pay for the vans with Fisher.
Well,
So-
we have, I think what was happening was that we were being charged per route. The Fisher has been good with kind of, cost sharing. You know, if we have an elementary run and a middle school run, they'll bump the price down and share that route a little bit. The bid specs did specifically ask for a single tier, double tier, and triple tier in district and route, and they do need to stay within them.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was still in there. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion on behalf of the Regional School Committee to accept the recommendation of the Director of Business and Finance and the two chairs that they negotiated with Fisher Bus Company in regards to the contract.
Second?
Okay. One quick question. I should have asked this sooner. I apologize. What's the total, Lindsay, what's the total savings for the concessions offered by Fisher Bus for the region?
Oh, of course, I didn't add them. Hold on, Dean, I'm sorry.
I have 23,207. I just want to make sure I'm right.
That sounds about right. I have an extra number in here, so I have to fix that, but,
Just for the
Yeah, just for the region.
oh my gosh, what am I doing here? So that happens on the fly.
Sorry, Lindsay.
Okay, so 20,000 for what you're doing on this page, the athletics. It's about, 13,000. So the combination of those two, about 41 grand.
41?
For
So,
For
yeah,
both?
how much is the savings for the athletics? Cause I think that's the number that messed me up, cause I came up with 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at the spreadsheet,
Yep.
this 19,566 was what it would have been if we just had the $60 waiting time.
Yep. So you take the difference, right?
Difference, it would be.
So it's the difference between that number and the 6,000 number,
Yeah. So 19,566 minus
which would be,
67,
you know,
67,
overall savings if we went with this
12,799,
middle
right?
column.
Okay. And then 12,799
Yeah.
plus 6245 plus 4163, right? Is that how you do it?
Yep.
So that gets me to
23.
23,207. That's what I said. I tried to.
41,307.
No, not 40.
Not 41. 21.
No, cause if you look on that page there,
Yeah,
Right, it should be
you're adding
six-
a region in again.
She's adding
But-
region and K-8.
Oh, is that
That's
both?
total. Oh, all right.
Is
Yeah.
that both
Total for the
districts?
contract.
Okay.
Yeah, fourth district.
Okay. Good deal.
But the high school is 13,000 for the athletics of this.
Yeah.
So that is kind of skewing it.
Thank you.
And your motion is intended to include the savings for eliminating the daily counts and the software?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Do you want to entertain a motion before we vote, just in case there's any further discussion?
I make a motion that we accept the Fisher contract, as stated by our business director, to include the savings, to eliminate the daily bus count and the routing software.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Cook, a second by, Mr. Capello. Do we have any discussion? Further discussion?
Do we have any further discussion? Okay. We have some further discussion. Why don't we take a roll call? Mr. Giliucci?
Aye.
Mrs. Gagliardi?
Aye.
Mrs. Field?
Aye.
Mr. Larrabee?
Aye.
Mr. Vitello?
Aye.
Mrs. Rothwell?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, unanimous.
I'd like to do roll call as well without further discussion. Mr. Capello?
Aye.
Mrs. Rothwell?
Aye.
Mr. Machado?
Aye.
Mr. Cook?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well.
Very good.
Thank you, Mrs. Albanaz.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Better.
Feel better.
Thank you.
The next item we have is the description, job description. That is for the Director of Business and Finance that we would like to post as soon as possible. This just went out to us yesterday. I had a couple of suggestions. I would like to have gotten them typed, but it just wasn't possible between yesterday and today. In the first paragraph where it talks about job requirements, I wanted to add a bullet point that says experience in both municipal and regional school district. Municipal and regional school districts, because ideally, I'd like to see someone that's either worked in a comparable situation or has worked at different times in a municipal school district and a regional school district, because there are differences in reporting requirements from a financial perspective. You have, just by way of example, some of the things that are mentioned here, but some of the reporting is different, so I think ideally it would be good to have someone that has experience in both.
Maybe
Could I make
preferred?
that as preferred?
Yeah.
I think you're gonna limit your pool if we make it a requirement.
I was
No,
going
we're
to
not,
recommend the
none of
same
these
thing.
are absolute requirements. Yeah, we could say preferred, sure. Preferred experience. And then, in the first area, under budget development and monitoring, Under submit quarterly projections to both school committees, I'd like to add 4 more frequent reports if requested. And under C, I would like to add submit budget transfers between general ledger lines rather than when needed in a timely manner. And then finally, I'd like to add a number 11 at the very end, which says, pardon me?
There's 11.
There's an 11 that wasn't there yesterday.
Yeah, I
Other-
talked to Mr. Schooner about adding.
There's a,
Oh, well, I'm looking at the one that I got. The one that we have here is different. Oh. Okay, that, E is what I was going to propose to add, except that mine said, as you might suspect, the superintendent or the school committee.
Not specifically Rick Pierce.
I was gonna ask,
Sorry, Richard
who does
Pearson.
this position reports directly to the superintendent?
No, I don't, well,
How does,
Yeah.
Committee hires.
It does.
The committee
super-
hires, but
the school committees will hire the person, but the person reports to the superintendent. It is evaluated by the superintendent.
correct.
I mean, I think we've always had, well, we always strive to have the courtesy that we would go through the superintendent when we were requesting data. I think it would be nice to see that we continue in that fashion, that we strive for that.
So do you want to take out that, and going forward, no one from the school committee should ask anything directly to the business and finance director, only to the superintendent? We want to make sure we all follow that going forward. I'm fine with that if we all say we're not going to talk to the business and finance person and ask any requests unless it goes through the superintendent or publicly in the school committee.
I think that there's some leniency that can be given as far as discussing and talking with a member of the team of the administration. But I think from a reporting and accountability perspective, I think it's best to be transparent with the chain of command.
Yeah,
I don't know if
think that's what it
into
said.
that minutia needs to be on the, on the job description.
Where it says, E says, perform such other related assignments as deemed. When I think of an assignment, I'm thinking something like a major project. I want Lindsay to work on bus routing, something as a school committee, that would be an assignment. But asking for general information, hey, can you send me the FinStat? That's not something that I foresee. Christ, I've been doing this for 13 years, and I'll tell you, from Jim Kiley to Mark Furtado to everyone, those are just general, hey, FYIs, can you send me this into the committee? I don't see that, for us to be so black and white, that we're not going to talk to a member of the administration, everything goes to the superintendent. I think that's a little harsh.
No, but I think that key word is assignment.
Yeah,
That's
assign-
fine.
yeah.
So we wouldn't ask, I wouldn't expect any one of us to say, well, I want you to analyze X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
I mean, I would go through our chair, I would say, the chair would maybe go to the superintendent or whatever the case may be, but,
So doesn't that speak more to our norms though, than it
Yeah.
does to a job description?
yeah, I think so.
I agree.
We also have to remember too, as you have applicants that are looking at the job description, are we consistent with how others list this type of job as well? So there may be a question about reporting. If you're gonna be a member of a team, do we report directly to the school committee, do I report to the superintendent? I think we just have to be clear from a job description.
And let's be candid, I mean, and we don't wanna scare off every possible person with the thought of, I'm gonna have 12 bosses. I mean, I'm just gonna throw that out there. I mean, I
This
think
is
that
a-
a request is fine. I think we just need to be mindful of who this person reports to.
And this is a pretty detailed.
Yeah, I didn't
job
look at it as
description.
reporting, I think about was asking.
Yeah.
But see, I wasn't saying they have to report, I was saying, I was going by what Mr. Pierce said. So we do ask for them to do assignments, so if you don't put it in there, they might say, I don't really have to do any assignments, the school committee says, and that's fine, I'm fine with what this board wants.
So the first page.
First of all, can I just add, I think there are two different issues here. And by suggesting that the school committee could raise an issue, I was suggesting that it would be something that would be on the school committee agenda. It would be voted by the school committee to request that the Director of Business and Finance do a particular task. Now, you can, if you want to leave that out on the premise that the Director of Business and Finance reports to the superintendent, and we request that the superintendent provide us with certain information, and he says, no, you can't have that information. I think that's an unlikely scenario. But the second thing is, if you want to make a suggestion that there's not going to be any direct discussion with the Director of Business and Finance, I think that would impede the ability of the chair to function effectively. And you know, if you want to make that a rule, let's make sure that we've all, every one of us, is signed on to that, and we don't get on the telephone to ask any question of any member of the administration except through the superintendent.
No, my point was the assignments.
Okay, so you think the school committee should be in a position to have an agenda item to request that the Director of Business and Finance do something?
Yeah.
Prepare a report, certain type of information that the committee would like to have available?
I think we're parsing this a little bit too hard, because to be perfectly honest with you, Lindsay was instrumental in helping with the override push in Berkeley and preparing the information and data for the forums and things of that nature. That was certainly outside of her normal everyday, job function, but she certainly stepped to the plate and did that. And I'm not sure what her job description looked like, at the time that she was putting in those hours to help us out. The first page of the job description says individual contract with the school committees. I think that covers us for being able to contact and work with her. It's on the first page right at the very top. So I think we're, again, I think we're dicing this up a little bit too finely.
I think somebody mentioned the norms and beliefs, right?
Yes.
I
Common
think that's what
sense
gets
laws
us
prevail.
specifics.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm comfortable enough with E, adding or subtracting whatever language we feel is appropriate.
Well, okay, I was not aware of that E had been added. I have my notes on the description that was circulated. When did we get the revised
This afternoon.
job description?
This afternoon.
All right, so how should we handle this? Are the other suggestions that I made acceptable?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion
So
to
moved.
that effect.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes.
Is there any questions or additions from, so that,
May I just
Yes.
ask, in terms of, so we'll get this posted as quickly as possible, but then I'm not sure who you want me to work with to establish timelines for, what the deadlines will be, interview schedules, and things like that, because that is something else that before we move on to the next topic, it's something that we address now, just so that we have a time frame in mind of how we want to go about the next few months.
What's an acceptable?
I don't
timeline
think we
for
should
the
try to
process?
do that tonight. We can do that
I think we need to, because we need to post it. So he needs to know how.
I mean,
long-
I at least need to know what the deadline will be for,
Is there a standard?
until filled, I would think. I think it's going to be an extremely difficult position to fill. As a matter of fact, I was going to suggest that we consider also posting for an interim business manager, because I am skeptical that we're going to be able to find a full-time permanent business manager in the time frame that we have between now and the time Lindsay's going to leave.
right, especially at this time of the year.
Or that the person would be able to start. The end of the fiscal year is a difficult time for a business manager to leave. So that was just something that I was
Right,
going to
because
suggest, if we
somebody
need to
might
put
not
that.
leave another position, like a good candidate might not leave another position at the end of the year to come here, so you might want, I do suggest that we do an interim position as well.
Alright.
What were you thinking of a timeline?
Well, I just know that the way this is written right now, it's a starting date immediately. I'm not really sure if it's that immediate, or we wanna find someone quickly, but it's not going to be, we don't need to fill the position tomorrow. Which would also, if we say that, or even if we say May 1st, we're not going to get any quality applicants because no one will be leaving their current district in May 1st or June 1st. July 1st is far more likely at the start of the fiscal year, or shortly thereafter. But the immediately that's on here, I think would just scare people off.
Okay.
So do you do like July 1st or sooner? Or, something that's attractive, right? But I just think you need an end date so you can figure out where your pool of candidates is and get them, because if you leave it open-ended, has that worked in the past? I don't know.
Well, the problem, and again, just thinking out loud, the problem is if you put down an end date and somebody doesn't submit an application by that end date, and then you get an outstanding candidate that sends in a resume 2 weeks later, legally, can you consider that candidate who didn't file the application? I mean, certainly in the private sector you could without any problem, but whether in the public sector you could consider a candidate who sends it in a week or two late.
So can't we
I don't
do
know.
positions until filled, like posted
I
until
agree
filled,
with
and then
that.
July 1st? I think July 1st would be good, doesn't mean they can't be hired before to do training, but like I said, that does open the pool of candidates if you put July 1st, where if they want to give notice to other job. But I think definitely posted until filled.
But, so how do you schedule the interviews?
I was
If there's
gonna
an end
say-
date, then you know where your pool of candidates is, you go through it, you take the top 3 or 5, and you start going there. If it's open-ended, then are you just interviewing people as they apply? And that's okay if you're the one interviewing, but
It's going to be
Or
these committees.
applications requested by,
You could always interview
April
people
1st.
until July 1st. So whoever comes in.
Yeah, but we have to interview people as a joint committee, so
Yes.
we have.
that's a task.
It's,
you have to get
Take
a committee
applications
together
and
to
then
go
do
through.
interviews in June.
So is there any wisdom then to having the deadline be the beginning of May and the starting date be in July? So people have an opportunity to go ahead and let their current employers know that, they have a runway to replace them, and there's no immediate need to begin working here at the end of the fiscal year, or the end of the school year.
Or we,
Because I do think that we do have to, you do have to have some sort of line in the sand where, applications are due. And I get your point, but there's risk in everything, right?
we could say application deadline May 1st or until filled thereafter, something like that, where it doesn't leave it open-ended.
Does that make sense to you?
That does, yes.
Yeah, because your applicant needs to know when they need to get their, resume and application in mind.
So, what are you putting for start date?
July 1st, right? And then
July 1st or sooner if possible.
July, yeah, okay, or sooner.
If available.
That's fair.
Regarding an interim, is that appointed or does that go through a similar interview process?
same interview.
Same.
I didn't think,
But
again,
before we
because I think that Lindsay will probably be leaving before July 1st.
Correct.
So there's the possibility of a retired business manager being willing to step in for a couple of months, or maybe even during a transition period with a new business manager. That's what I'm thinking. There's a tremendous tremendous amount to do in June, and then the reporting period starts for both our auditors and with the state mandated reports from July through September or October. It's a critical time, so we may need someone to get us through that period.
I thought at one point in the early years of the region, we did actually have an interim business director from Masbo, actually. Somebody came in and did that, so it might be something that was referred to us by Masbo. I forgot his name. He was in as an interim for a while.
We had an interim special ed director, I'm trying to.
No, I thought we had a very short time, an interim business manager too. I might be wrong.
I think we did.
He's from Seacon.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
So, yeah, we can look at it. We did also have an interim sped director, but I don't know how the interim business manager does.
Okay.
Any other questions
No,
you have on that?
I'm all set right now, thank you.
We need to make a
The
motion.
only
We
other.
need to vote on the K-8.
You guys are,
We didn't vote yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
okay. So, make a motion to, can we have a motion to accept the Director of Business and Finance Director's position posted with the amendments as suggested?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Crook and a second by Mrs. Rockwell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Do you, Jeff, do you want to organize a committee now to review applications, or is that something that we can do later?
I think we should hold off, just in case if we don't, if the deadline, when is the deadline gonna be?
May 1st,
We're gonna have a new school
so
committee,
we'll have,
we have
two
new
school
elected
committees at that
officials and
point.
all of that.
well, actually, when does Berkeley,
I think it's May 11th.
Mr. Ghilarducci?
May. It's Saturday, second Saturday of May,
May 11th.
the 11th.
But neither of you are for election, right?
Nope.
Just, you're.
You're up for election again?
It's been 3 years.
Oh.
And that
Seems
position's
like
that position's appointed off the K-8.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have my nomination paper printing in, and it's already filled out.
So, I don't know if you want.
Yeah, I would say we should just wait before we appoint it, but that's just my opinion. But my question is with, Lindsay being, our procurement officer, I guess, for the MSBA, we may also, the K-8 may also have to, if we don't have a candidate by then, we may have to find someone from another district that can fill in for us. I think when Lindsay was going for it, did Mark stay on? Mark Furtado?
No.
No, so I was just wondering, or, because I believe we sent Lindsay for it, but she wasn't certified at one time. How did the
As a
region?
procurement officer or a business,
Procurement
finance?
officer.
Procurement officer.
Do we have somebody in town that could fill that role?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Bolton has.
All right, maybe he can fill in for us as well.
Certification.
The job description includes a requirement that the person is either certified or will become certified.
Yeah, or obtain.
I don't know that, I don't recall whether there's a separate certification with Massachusetts School Building Authority. It's just
No, it's just
the experience that you've had dealing through the process for once, which is a huge loss.
Well, the MSBA requires that one person on the building committee have the MCPPO certification.
That was
Currently, I think she's the only one, unless Mr. Scanlon does it. which I'm
What
not
about,
sure.
what about our OPM? Right? Are they technically on the building committee or not?
No.
No, they couldn't.
You know, just thinking about this, and that kind of just, and I'm gonna ask both committees if you don't mind, if it doesn't say that, I don't think I noticed that, but, you know, when we added preferred, it would also be nice if we were to put something, and I know this is like in the 11th hour, actually after the 11th hour, 12th hour, maybe we should put some experience with the MSBA preferred too. That may be very helpful for at least the K-8 side with, you know, we may have a lot of MSBA projects in the future, so if you all wouldn't mind, I would love to put that back in, but we would need a vote again.
It's under maintenance and capital projects.
It doesn't say that,
Yeah.
It says
MSBA?
D, serve as
a member of the building committee.
member.
And that might come out through the interview process too, as you're looking in, I would think that that might be part of their experience, as you're looking at candidates, that might come out.
And also, are you singling yourself out? I mean, this person could have had building management projects, just not with the MSBA, you know? You're getting down to the minutia again.
I know it was very valuable for the committee when we were looking for an OPM for the project, so. All right, well, let's move forward.
Okay, so if it's okay with you, Mr. Pierce, we had on there video recording of school committee meetings. I'd like just to table that because we have some other information. I was gonna read something from our attorneys, but Mr. Crook has some more information that he is researching, so we like to bring it.
I just noted to Melissa that there's brand new case law from December of 2018 that kind of contradicts statement made by our attorney regarding public officials and videotaping public officials. So I just wanted to talk with Jeff and just
Talking
see.
about videotaping police officers.
Well, it says public officials, yeah.
Yeah, I had the same concern because I was aware that, I
Yeah.
thought that there were some recent cases where,
It's cutting edge, it's brand new.
Right.
And I don't know if it has, you know, what I would assume we are public officials at some point. And I know the open meeting law versus public official, but basically a lot of jurisdictions have just said, hey, listen, this is an open meeting, if you want to videotape, you can videotape us.
So let's just get more
So
information.
I just wanted to just send this to Jeff, and Jeff can send this to Andy, and then Andy can interpret it if it open meeting versus public official versus.
To me, I think it was more about not so much us, but other people being aware if people are recording and, you know, you're in the audience. And you don't want yourself on there, like, if I was there and I didn't want my child to be on someone's camera, I think that's where some people might have been concerned. Like us, I think that's fine, but if it's in the audience and it's on your personal social media and now your kid's on there and you didn't give permission, I don't know if we're held liable for that, so I think that was
Well,
why
I
it was
think we
brought
also
up.
have to address it, because at the beginning of every meeting, we read a statement asking about,
So we
we
need
wish
some,
to be electronic, I think we just need to have a
Exactly.
story.
okay, so if that's okay with K-8, I would like to table that for further information.
I have no preference either way.
okay, so the only remaining item we have on the agenda is to consider approval of joint open session minutes of February 6, 2019. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mrs. Gagliardi and seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I'd also like to consider approving the joint open session minutes of February 6, 2019.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Cook and a second by Mrs. Rockwell. Any discussion? Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Next is public input.
We'll stop.
Public participation.
I don't have any topics right now, not anticipated.
Nor do I.
Okay, great.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move it.
Motion made by Mr. Larrabee, seconded by Mrs. Field. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I'd like to introduce to adjourn K-8.
So moved.